So today I'm going to show how you can make use of our CSV store manipulator to store CSV records into impulse sync storage so that a future job can then retrieve these records based on the stored key and actually adjust values and manipulate the content before delivery as necessary based on our CSV. So what we will see is if we take a look at our CSV file first, we'll see we have three separate columns where we have our old status, which is what will be made part of our key to store and how we'll search up and what we want to replace in our source content. We have our new status, so this is the value that we want to replace our old status with. So this is from our old source content, and this is what we want it in our destination content. And finally, we have an extra column for details on why the status was updated or what the status means. And we may or may not be interested in using this, but we'll see how to parse these out as necessary. So from our source content, what we'll see is we're really just migrating an article or two here where these articles have a field called status, and this status is going to be used to refer back to the appropriate record or row here in the CSV to get the new status as necessary. And here we can see that our status value from our source content is just a number where it will align and match with our old status value here, and that's what we will be using to search storage with and then replace the value with as necessary. And what we'll see here at our destination is we'll be migrating this article using taking the CSV values as necessary into a small content type at our destination where we just have, the title. We have our full record where we'll be outputting the entire record, as well as the status where we will be doing that switching of the old status to the new status. Now looking at the configuration in Impulse Sync, what we'll see is we have our pipeline set up, and this pipeline has two jobs. The first job is the CSV store job. This is where we will be picking up our CSV from our source. In this case, it's stored in Microsoft Teams. We're picking up the CSV using our CSV store manipulator to save the values into Impulse Sync storage, so that way our later job can make use of them. Once our CSV store job has finished running, we'll be able to see our article to CSV job run, which will then make use of manipulators to retrieve stored values from storage using that status field from our source article to retrieve the appropriate row or record from the CSV that we stored and replace its values as necessary. Now, if we take a look at the job configuration for each of these jobs in the pipeline, we'll see how this is configured. And we can start with our CSV store job, where we have our source connect endpoint set up to pick up our CSV file as necessary. And we have our destination endpoint as well for where we want to deliver as necessary. Now, we'll see that we have our one manipulator, the CSV store manipulator. And looking at our CSV store manipulator config, what we'll see here is primarily this column index option. Now this column index option allows us to create our store key based on values from the CSV itself. So what we'll see here is we want to create our store key from the values for each column index we add here. And this can be a comma separated list of different indexes per column value you want to add to your store key. In this case, we're only going to use the index 0. So looking back at our CSV, that means that here, our index 0, our first column, is the store key for each of these rows. So this row 2 will be stored under the storage key 0, row 3 under the storage key 1, and so on and so forth. So we'll be able to use those values to retrieve from storage each row from our CSV. Now the second job that we've configured is the article to CSV article. And taking a look at its configuration, again, we'll see our source and destination endpoints configured, as well as our manipulators. Now looking at the first manipulator, what we'll see is it's configured to actually create a store key using that status value, and we'll be using the get stored value filter to retrieve our value that is stored in ImpulseSync storage. Now we're not going to do any additional parsing. In this case, we're building that field record where we're just going to get the stored value and completely output it into our record field without any further parsing. Now our second manipulator is actually where we are getting our stored value again. Again, we're using the status field value from our source content to search ImpulseSync storage for the appropriate record from our CSV. Now in this case, we are doing additional parsing of this record where we're going to split it by its comma. Now, by a comma value. With this will create an array where we can get any of the index values in the array. In this case, we want our second column, so that's index 1, where we'll see we have record at index 1. Going back to our CSV, we have each row or record has, remember, 3 columns, column 0, column 1, and column 2. This is why we're going to take record at index 1, because we want the new status values. Now obviously, because these are manipulators and all this work happens in a manipulator, remember you can make use of ImpulseSync's manipulator chain to perform additional parsing as necessary with many different manipulators running in order. Or if you're in a manipulator such as this liquid field manipulator, we could do additional parsing with any of the liquid manipulator filters and logic that you can apply to a liquid template. Now, both of these jobs are configured. Real quickly, we can take a look at the mapper, and what we'll see is simply, as expected, our destination content type with its field mapping as necessary. And what we'll see now is, since both these jobs are created, we had them in our pipeline, we've run our pipeline. What we'll be able to look at is our content at our destination, where we will have our CSV article content here with the title set as appropriate. We have our record value here, and notice here, this is where we have the matching record for the appropriate status, status 1, where we have the full entire record from the CSV. So if we look back at our CSV, we'll see this where the old status was 1. It had 1 live, and the article is live, and those are the values we see here in our record field at our destination. Additionally, we have our actual status field itself, where the status used to be 1. Now we've replaced it with 1, what was 1, and we've replaced it with the value live. So this is how you're able to make use of ImpulseSync's CSV store manipulator to parse out a CSV file, store each row or record into storage with the store key being set from the column indexes and column values inside of the CSV itself, and then using manipulators in another job to actually retrieve those values and parse them and set them as appropriate to your content to send that is migrated to your destination. Thanks for watching.